Hi everyone, it's me. So today we're going to talk about my foreigner reaction to all the craziness that are British schools. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Alanna and I'm a Canadian, but I lived and worked in England for 4+ years. Now I'm back in Canada temporarily, hoping to go back to England. I say this in all my videos now. That's probably getting a bit annoying. Since it is back to school season, I thought we should talk about school. Finally, I've been putting it off. It's kind of scary, but guess what? This video is sponsored. That's right. What? I know. This video is sponsored by Pouch. Thank you, Pouch. God bless. Cheers. Thank you very much. We're going to talk about that a bit later, so just hold tight. I know you're excited. So without further ado, let's go. Now there are a lot of differences between schools in North America and the UK, so I picked some of the things that popped out to me in my discussions with other people and asking British people about school and that kind of stuff. And the biggest one that always comes out is grammar schools versus secondary or compulsory schools. So in the UK, as far as I understand it, when you are 11, little baby 11-year-olds, when you're 11, you take the 11+ exam, and that decides whether you are smart enough to go to a grammar school or you are not smart enough and you go to a compulsory school or a secondary school. I've heard them referred to in both ways, but just think of it like just a regular school. And this concept kind of blows my mind. I think about when I was 11 and you're tiny and you don't understand literally anything. So I can't imagine the kind of pressure it must be to have to take this exam when you are just a itty bitty baby to decide whether you get to go to, like, you know, a grammar school, so all the smart kids, you get more, I don't know, possibilities, better universities and colleges and things afterwards, or you mess up on the exam because you're terrified and you're a baby and maybe you're not really good at exams and you get stuck in like the stupid kids school, which is not what it is, but when you're 11, that's what it really feels like. I also know that some little kids in the UK will get tutors to help them pass this 11+ exam, which just kind of like makes me sad. So it's definitely not something you will see here in Canada. We don't have that separation, but it is a part of education in the UK, rightfully or wrongfully. I don't know. Did you go to a grammar school? Did you go to a secondary school? Anyway, it's always a bit shocking when I think about it. So just a side note, here in Canada, we kind of have 3 major types of schools. You have public school, which is just your run-of-the-mill, everyday school, just everybody goes there. I went to public school throughout my education. Then you get private school. Private school is very expensive. All the posh, rich people go there. It's a lot of money typically, but that's your private school. Then if you're religious and you want to have a religious education, you go to Catholic school. That's, you know, its own separate thing. But for most just like run-of-the-mill average people, we go to public school. You do not have to take a test when you are young to get into a public school. It's just, it's school. That's where you go. Oh, what time is it? It's time for my ad. Please stay tuned. Hello. Hey guys, so like I said, this video is sponsored. Do you like shopping online? Yes. Do you like saving money? Also yes. So why aren't you using Pouch? Pouch is a free desktop browser extension. It's incredibly easy to download because it only takes a couple of clicks to install and then pin to your browser. Once you've done so, it looks around the internet for the best discount codes, so when you are shopping online, it automatically applies them at the checkout, and then you save money. It's that simple. And since this video is about going back to school, you're probably gonna need back to school supplies. You're probably gonna shop online, so just use Pouch. Pouch is incredibly easy to set up, so please use my link here somewhere in the screen, and my link is in the description. You just follow that. It's literally like no time at all to download. Plus, using my link tells Pouch that you came from me. Alright, help me out. Help yourself out, save money, okay? It's not that difficult. I know a lot of viewers here are British. Hi, how's it going? Did you know Pouch works on over 3,000 UK websites? More than any other browser extension. Now you know. So thank you so much to Pouch for sponsoring this video, and thank you guys for watching. I know watching ads is not fun. That's why I do sponsored content very sparingly, because I only want to work with companies that I actually use, and Pouch is one of them. Now back to the rest of the video. Enjoy. Now the next thing that sticks out for me about British schools that seems a bit archaic is that many schools still separate based on gender. Stop doing this. So from what I understand, most schools sort of at the 11-year-old range, you know, like when you go to a grammar school, a lot of those schools are sex separated, which to me, I got a lot of feelings about this one. So for I keep saying this, from my understanding, the idea is that you separate boys and girls so they don't focus, you know, on the opposite gender. They can focus on their studies, they can get a good education, yada yada yada. To me, I think it's absolutely ridiculous. And here's why. I don't think there are any gender separated schools that I know of here in Canada. I'm gonna go ahead and say that. I didn't even Google that, but I've never ever seen a gender segregated school. So for me, I went to public school, so you got like elementary school, middle school, high school, you graduate. Throughout my entire education, there were always boys and girls. And I think it is really important, and I'm gonna now tell you why I think that. I think going to school with boys really demystifies them. So I can imagine that if you went to an all-girls school and you weren't allowed to learn alongside boys, that might make boys a bit mysterious, a bit interesting, you know? You don't really know what they're all about, right? You don't see them all day, every day. It's kind of like when you're on a diet and you can't have ice cream and suddenly all you can think about is ice cream. So for me, going to school, I was with boys all day, every day, and you learn real quick that boys are kind of gross and weird and a bit annoying, but they are real people. They're just regular people. And I think it's really important as you are growing up to learn how to work with different types of people, how to do group projects with different types of people, how to study and present with different types of people. And I feel like you lose a lot of that in a gender segregated school. And I also think it makes the opposite sex like really mysterious because you don't see them all day, every day, day in and day out for years and years and years. So that's just my 2 cents. I don't like gender segregated schools. I think you lose out on a lot of valuable skills. And I also think it has the ability to make like, you know, make you boy crazy, right? All you can think about is boys because you never get to see them during the day. But when you go to a high school filled with boys, you realize, wow, no thank you. Now usually if you are at a boys' school, it's usually paired with a girls' school. So maybe there's a girls' school nearby, maybe even on the same street. So they are somewhat close to each other, but obviously you're not doing group projects with girls or presentations or research or studying or interacting on a day-to-day basis while at school. So I just think they're stupid. I think people should be working together because you learn so many important skills. All right, let's move on. Now another thing that I noticed actually when I was living in England is you don't have those traditionally very bright, pretty ugly yellow school buses. So in North America, you will see yellow school buses. I have actually seen an orange one in the US. That was very surprising. It was very thrilling to see an orange school bus. But typically you will see a bright yellow school bus, right? Like the Magic School Bus. Did you ever watch that show? Maybe you're too old for that, but I did. But you won't see those in the UK. I've never seen one. Do they exist? I don't think so. So typically if you are a student and you can't walk to school or you can't get a ride to school, you will take a bus, of course, but they are regular city buses. So they look the same. They're like the buses I used to take. They'd be the same, you know, vehicle, but for so many runs each day, it would just be for school runs. So be taking students to school rather than having like your own fleet of yellow school buses or whatever color you decide. It will be like city buses instead, which is pretty interesting because I used to take the school bus, the bright yellow bus, before I learned how to drive. And they don't stop at bus stops, right? Because they're school buses. So like down the street here out in the boonies, there's a school bus will stop there and pick up kids from this area. So it's different in that they don't stop at bus shelters, you know, or designated bus stops. They have special stops for students based on, you know, where people live. And if there's a lot of people in one subdivision, maybe they'll have 2 different pickup points or whatever. So it's just a little bit interesting that the UK doesn't have their own school buses. They just use city buses. I mean, it doesn't really matter, I guess. I just thought it was cool. Now, another thing I thought was pretty interesting is that primarily, I want to say, and I'm just pulling this number literally out of my butt, sorry, I want to say 90% of British schools have uniforms. Can I get away with saying that? So when you are going to work in the morning, if it's like a typical work day, you will see students everywhere and you will likely all see them in uniform. So for me, when I was working in England and I used to commute to one particular job, I would see kids in uniforms everywhere. Everybody school-aged was in a uniform. I didn't know any local schools that had no uniforms. All like the secondary, primary age kind of students are in uniforms. And maybe that's normal to you. If you're British, maybe you went to school in a uniform, but did you know that not everybody does? So for me personally, throughout public school, throughout boys and girls school, I never went to a school that had a uniform. Never happened. Typically here in North America, the only schools, so we talked about, right, private school, Catholic school, public school. Private school is for like the elite, and they will have a uniform, typically, you know, proper blazer and tie, looking like a grammar school kind of outfit. Those kids spend, well, not the kids, those parents spend a lot of money for those kids to go to a private school, so naturally they're in very posh uniforms. Then you have Catholic school. Catholic school, as you can imagine, has a lot of rules. So Catholic school kids will be in uniforms. They, I think, are less common, and obviously you only go there if your parents want you to be in a religious environment, so it's not for everybody obviously, but you will have a uniform at Catholic school. And then finally, the bottom of the barrel, just kidding, just regular old public school. For the rest of us, we are not in uniforms. I've never worn a uniform. I've never had to buy a uniform. I've never had to wash a uniform. I've never had to mend a uniform. I've never worn a uniform. So it's just a little bit different. I know there are, well, I know there's a bug in my eye, first of all. Give me a second. I know there are pros and cons to having uniforms, to not having uniforms. I know a lot of people think that if you have uniforms, there'll be less bullying because everybody's wearing the same thing. I want to go ahead and say that's not a real thing. Kids are gonna bully no matter what. But hey, whatever helps you sleep at night. Personally, I don't know what's better or worse. I don't know. I guess if you go to a school with uniforms, you not only have to pay for your child or children to have proper fitting uniforms. There's a hawk that's screaming. Please stop. So not only do you have to pay for the uniforms, you also have to pay for your kids to have regular clothes. Whereas my family only had to pay for regular clothes. We didn't have to then additionally buy a uniform. So on one hand, I can see that it would get quite expensive, especially if you have a child that is growing. And correct me if I'm wrong, I'm pretty sure most children grow. But I guess I can see it both ways. I get it, I don't get it, you know. I get it. Now, one thing about British schools that I find really exciting, well, there's a couple things. Okay, so, as a little baby, Alanna read Harry Potter, alright? I'm the right age. I read it, I soaked it up, I went to the movie premiere dressed as Hermione. You heard it here first, don't tell anybody I told you that. But I loved Harry Potter, and there are aspects of British schooling that happened in Harry Potter, and so for a foreigner, for just a little Canadian, it's very exciting, and one of those is houses. Now, I'm pretty sure this is for primarily grammar schools. I'm not sure if secondary schools do this, but you have houses, which I love. What house are you? So students in a particular year will be separated into houses. I don't know, Gryffindor, Ravenclaw, you know, the usual. And you will stay in that house for your entire school career at that school, which is really cool. I know they're typically named after maybe famous landmarks or people, inventors or places, you know, that kind of stuff, which is just so cute. I just love it. On top of that, also very Harry Potter-esque, you may have prefects, which we did not have in school. We also did not have houses, so all of this stuff is really exciting for me. But a prefect is like a hall monitor on steroids, so it's a student that's supposed to be very responsible, and they have a lot of responsibilities and duties in the school. Some people that I spoke to said that having prefects is a way to have less staff. So you have to pay less staff because you have these prefects that sort of pick up the slack and carry extra responsibilities. So while houses and prefects may seem like literally nothing to the Brits, I think it's fabulous. It's very cute. It's very exciting. My school did not have that. Any of my schools, I went to a bunch of them, did not have houses, did not have prefects, nothing exciting like that. One of the big things that stood out to me in British schools is the, how do I want to say this? One of the things that shocked me with British schools is that many schools have a religious affiliation, which is a big no-no here in Canada. So in the UK, you will find, especially with older schools, that there will be some sort of religious affiliation. Typically, it's the Church of England, and that's just part of the school culture. So you'll find that there will be assemblies each day. Maybe you sing some hymns. Maybe somebody, like a prefect, reads a Bible verse. There are really obvious, direct influences of religion in the school, even though, you know, it's a grammar school. It's just, you know, it's a school. There are really obvious religious connotations, which to me is shocking. So in Canada, like we talked about, private school, Catholic school, public school. Catholic school, of course, has religion. There are religious aspects to that school. That is why you put your kid in that school. If you go to public school, like myself, you cannot have any religious influence because it is not church, it is school. So we did not do hymns, we did not do Bible verses, we did not go to church as a school, we had no religious affiliation. It is a public school, it is for education, not religion. So I just found that really interesting. I also know some schools here, not here, some schools in the UK will have a like church nearby that they're sort of affiliated with, so that the school will go to that particular church for things. That is a huge no-no here. There is no religious anything at a public school. It's not gonna happen. Sorry, it's illegal. But I do understand there's a much longer history of, you know, the Church of England in that particular school. We just do not have that here. It's illegal to have religious things in a public school. It just doesn't happen. I just think it's really interesting. So, hope you did too. The next one we have is proms and formals. Yes, of course. Good old prom. From the Brits that I spoke to, it seems like prom specifically, and to a lesser extent formals, were not really a thing, but have slowly become more of a common occurrence at schools in the UK. So I know some of the British people I spoke to said, like, I didn't have a prom when I was there, but I know in recent years they've now had a prom. So it's definitely, it's sort of coming over the ocean from North America to the UK and becoming more of a thing. So yes, proms and dances and formals and that sort of stuff are quite big here in North America. It's just part of the culture. I went to prom. I know my school has always had a prom since like the 70s. They've had prom, so it's not a new thing. It's an exciting thing. It's a fun time. You know, it's a party. It's dinner. It's dancing. We also do the awards, like most likely to become prime minister, most likely to have a great party, like all that kind of stuff. So it's just a fun thing to have. But it does seem that the UK is kind of interested in this idea, and it's becoming more and more popular. Now, leaving age is such a big thing to talk about, and I just want to touch on it briefly. Leaving age in the UK technically is 16. You can leave school, secondary school, grammar school at 16, which to me blows my mind. When you are 16, you are a baby. You do not know anything at all. Oh my god. So from what I understand, when you're 16, you can leave school, but you either have to become an apprentice or you have to go to college. You have to be in some kind of education. So it's not like you just leave and you go to work anymore. I think that's what it is now. For a Canadian, that's pretty shocking. In 16, you are very much still in high school. You do not graduate. You have to actually graduate the school, usually when you're 17 or 18, and then you would go on to college, or you'd go on to university, or maybe you'd get a job or apprenticeship or whatever. But you can't just choose to leave. You have to have the credits to graduate for school here. I don't want to get into it too deeply because I think it can be very confusing. But anyway, all I'm saying is at 16, technically you can leave school in the UK and go on to something else. In Canada, that is a no, 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 definitely not. In Canada, you have to have the required credits and classes completed before you graduate high school and you move on to something else. So it's fascinating. I know in other videos I mentioned that I used to work at a college in Kent in England, and it was quite shocking to see 16-year-olds at college because you're just a baby and you're so immature, and they're a nightmare. Absolute nightmare. So those are just a handful of things that I wanted to react to about British schools. There's so much. We'll do more videos of these, I promise. Maybe. But I hope you like this video. I hope you learned something new. Maybe? Is that possible? I don't know. It's YouTube. Anything goes. But thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you so much to Pouch for sponsoring this video. I know watching ads is annoying, but it genuinely does help me out. And I only ever pick partnerships with companies that I actually use. Alright, so I know it's boring, but thank you for watching. Thank you to them for sponsoring, and I hope you like this video. As always, thank you guys so much for watching, and until next time, bye!